I'm Bill Smith, president of WILG. There's been a lot going on that I want to talk to you about. First of all, we're now in 2020, and this is the 50th anniversary of the Occupational Safety and Health Act. This week, on Tuesday, April 28th, was Workers' Memorial Day. Workers' Memorial Day is a day that we mourn and celebrate the lives of injured workers who've lost their lives or had their lives forever changed as a result of workplace injuries. Last year, there were 5,250 deaths, people that died as a result of work accidents. There were another 2.8 million workplace injuries. I hate to think of what that number will be that we report next year after this pandemic. Healthcare workers, first responders, meat packers, dock workers, public transit workers, grocery workers are dying because of COVID-19. But let's step back for a second. Things were bad for injured workers before this pandemic hit. Workers' compensation benefits were inadequate. I have constantly talked about that and written about that since I became president of WILG. You've heard me say it before, but only 21% of the cost of a workplace injury is paid by a workers' compensation system. Another 50% comes out of the pocket of the injured worker, with the remaining percentages falling to social benefit programs. I frequently cite the 2016 OSHA study, Does the Workers' Compensation System Fulfill Its Obligation to Injured Workers? The conclusion of that study was a resounding no. About 2 weeks ago, that study disappeared from the Department of Labor website. That concerned me greatly. It has now been put back up on the website, but it's much harder to find. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Some of my comments today may seem political. They're really not meant to be. WILG is a diverse organization. We're made up of Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, progressives, moderates, libertarians. While we may differ politically, we're all committed to our mission. And that mission is protecting the rights and benefits of injured workers, and that includes protecting their access to courts and workers' compensation commission. In this time of crisis, despite how bad things already were for injured workers, the rights and benefits of injured workers are again under attack. And they're under attack in three different ways, or in three different systems. The Federal Employees Compensation Act is the workers' compensation law that protects our nation's federal workers. Postal workers, Veterans Administration workers, federal law enforcement, all federal employees. The Secretary of Labor has proposed changes to the Federal Employees Compensation Act. These changes would cut benefits to federal employees when they're hurt on the job. Our FECRA chairs, Dan Goodkin and Wayne Johnson, are working very hard on this issue, but our membership needs to know about this. Next, longshore and harbor workers. The Department of Labor and Office of Workers' Compensation Programs has declined to issue any bulletins to protect or inform workers of their rights to file COVID-19 claims. Longshore workers are classified as essential workers, but neither OWCP or OSHA has issued any mandatory protection guidelines for them. All COVID-19 claims now go to the national office instead of the normal procedure of informal conferences with a lower level claims handler. In general, there's a lack of transparency for the handling of COVID-19 claims under the Longshore Act right now. Let me talk to you a moment about state claims. Many states have passed presumption laws that would protect injured workers that are essential workers, whether it's healthcare workers, first responders, law enforcement officers. It would presume that if they develop COVID-19, that their infection came as a result of their workplace injury. That hasn't happened everywhere, but it has happened in several states. Utah was the most recent. A couple of weeks ago, I talked to you about the Smithfield plant in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, that had this incredible outbreak. That plant is now closed, and they're up to, at last count that I saw, 853 cases of COVID-19 infections with 2 deaths. We have seen that pattern permeate the country. Almost every meatpacking plant in the country is now having issues with COVID-19. Tuesday, on Workers' Memorial Day, the president signed an executive order under the Defense Production Act, essentially compelling these meatpacking plants to stay open as part of our critical infrastructure. The press briefings that accompanied this announcement hinted that there would be an order that would provide immunity for these employers if their employees came back to work and got sick. In fact, the Senate Majority Leader has indicated that he will not engage in negotiations on further federal stimulus bills unless they are conditioned on providing legal immunity to companies for lawsuits related to their actions during this pandemic. Right now, OSHA is conducting the fewest inspections of any time on record. Protections for workers going back to these plants are only suggested, not mandated by the Department of Labor or by OSHA. Governors in states are saying that workers who don't go back to work over fear of the coronavirus will lose unemployment benefits. Workers will face a choice of starving, not being able to provide for their families, or returning to work without safeguards in dangerous environments and with no remedy if they get sick or die. Is that who we are? Is that what our country is now? WILG warriors, I'm asking you to stand up, be heard, be counted on these issues. If these bills do pass, they will certainly face constitutional challenges from our members, but we have to stop these bills from passing. You need to know about this. I'm asking you to recruit new members, to get in the game, put on your armor, and fight what's happening to injured workers across this country. Federal workers, longshore workers, and private workers within states. Our workers' compensation systems were already in horrible shape, and now they're under attack. Let's get out there and fight. I'll talk to you next week.